There have been a number of projects in crypto and DeFi that have failed. So if you think about stable fund not having guaranteed returns, if you think about some of the institutions like FTX mismanaging money, there are a lot of red flags in the space and things we should watch out for when evaluating a project. So I want to take a moment to just run through a couple of things that we look for at Defiantly and some things you should watch out for just personally whenever you invest your money, whether it be in crypto or whether it be in the stock market or some project that you are interested in. All these really apply in the same way. But with that being said, this is not financial advice. It's really meant to be educational to give you a background about what things to look for, not tell you what specifically to invest in. So without further ado, let's take a look at some of the factors. Really, I broke it down into 6 different sections. One is the team, so who is running the project or the thing that you're investing in. What is the idea of that investment? Is it going to be successful? Are they having novel, groundbreaking, or something that's unique in that space? What does the revenue look like? Do they have any revenue? What is long-term figures for the project? What do the rewards look like? So how much of that revenue can you gain based on your investment? What kind of verification can you do to ensure that they have their funds properly allocated? And then what does the community look like? What are others saying about it, whether it's in the DeFi space or whether it's in regular stock market? Are people flocking to this thing or are they running away from it? And that can change over time. So let's break those down a little bit individually here. With the team. So experience is important. So if somebody is working in the investment space and they're working with a trading bot, or they're working, say Project 79 in the gold kind of procurement space, or true seekers working in the KYC auditing validation space, you want to make sure that they have the background to actually support their abilities. Are they working with any third parties? So this includes development teams, right? So is the dev team in-house or are they working with another group? If they're working with another group, could that group be malicious? Could they have, inappropriate access to wallets and things like that? Can they hack their own system or put in a backdoor? Has the team worked on past projects and were they successful or did they fail? And even if they failed, did they learn from them? Have they made tweaks to not run into the same mistakes again? How will they pivot is important. Is the team doxed or KYC'd? I know a lot of people in the crypto and DeFi space aren't super supportive of these type of mechanisms because it kind of goes along the regulation space. But really, if something goes wrong, you want to be able to follow up and whether it be legally or otherwise to make sure that you actually can hold those people accountable that mismanage funds. And so it can be public, like doxing somebody, or it can be private, like KYC, where a third-party group kind of verifies they're who they say they're and they're split up their access accordingly. What is the size of the team? So is the team just one person running solo, or is it a group of people? Usually there's a power in numbers. It's harder to have a conspiracy or have a mismanagement of funds if there are a number of people involved. Now, it doesn't mean that group coordination can't produce bad results. Think of liquid capital, but just kind of that's one thing to look out for. And so some examples, Momentum, right? They have programming experience. This team is actually doxed. So if you actually look at you do a little bit of digging in their AMAs. John had mentioned he worked for a company called Carvana, and that company is in Arizona. So very quick search on LinkedIn, you can find the person. And I'm not putting this up here to necessarily dox them or to show who they are or whatnot. It's really just meant to say that hey, they have some experience and they've done what they said they have done in the past. So it's really just doing that due diligence for that particular group. Similarly with Hydro Whales, or also Project 79, they're in essence one and the same team. If you look at their white paper here, they actually list out their team members with links to their LinkedIn, in this case, showing their faces, their first and last names. Um, these guys really are fully, transparent in what they do. And, that's the same for another project that they are running called Ocean Money. Right? Ocean Money has the same listing here. And kind of to go on the expertise area with hydro wells in specific, they're working with this third-party law firm that is actually validating the legality of their project and whatnot, helping them with legal advice. So those are all important, things to kind of look at when kind of considering a team. So the idea, how are they making the world a better place? Like what niche are they filling, and who are they in competition with? So you've heard of a lot of projects out there, especially in crypto. They are, in essence, a token that does a whole bunch of nothing. So think about a drip, right? So drip does not have any external revenue. Basically, it's just relying upon new investment income and or taxes to feed existing investors. So it's a classic Ponzi scheme in that sense, or at least it's using Ponzonomics in a way. Not to say that you can't, put your money in that space, but just know it's a gamble. No, it's not guaranteed. Uh, Ocean Money, as I had just showed, they are a project that are trying to, change the kind of outdated and legacy finance system to be more, electronic, cross-border, just like what crypto meant to be, but just kind of doing it in a more meaningful way. So they are solving like a real world problem. Same with another uh, hydro whales kind of spin-off project of Project 79. They also are trying to have a real world business, right? So usually you get extra kind of points, so to speak, in the analysis if you have a real world business that's supporting your project. So the idea, is very important. Revenue. So, does the project have actual revenue, or is it still just kind of in the seed round, right? So a lot of times crypto, especially with ICOs, but more, importantly, just in their general kind of offering seed rounds, so to speak, they are just gaining revenue. They're not having an actual product. So think about how momentum was in their V1 or maybe their earlier stages when they were alpha shares and doing their reflection token. Um, they, in essence, didn't have a strong kind of revenue stream yet because they still were building up, and they fully admitted that in one of their AMAs. They're trying to gain a treasury so they can do things like mining and whatnot. And then they transitioned over to a seed round, or from a seed round to an active revenue, where now they're into mining, trading bots, things like that. Is it sustainable long term? So if a project says we're going to give you 1% every single day, think about stable fund. Just do the math. That's 365% a year. And then if you compound, every day or every hour, that number ends up being quite astronomical to the point where there's no project on earth could ever actually sustain that, right? So just kind of be aware of what rewards they're offering if they're realistic. I always kind of bank it off of the stock market produces roughly an average return of like say 10% a year. So if a project is saying they're going to give you more than that, they must be doing something novel, something unique, or giving additional rewards to the holders. But there's some kind of cap on that, and what cap you have is your own personal kind of decision. But just kind of be aware of that. Also, is it verifiable, which we'll talk about later? Can you actually prove that they're getting the revenue they said they're going to, right? So the stable fund said that they were getting their revenue with a trading bot, but they never showed their trades. They didn't attend any crypto conferences. They kind of dodged them the whole way through. So, my speculation on that is that they were just running a scam the whole time and not actually doing any kind of investments. I did do some analysis on their transactions, and yes, they were sending money to an exchange to do trading and whatnot, but you never really saw those funds flow back into the system in a meaningful way. So I was somewhat skeptical there. But just make sure that the revenue is legit. Another project I guess I will mention here is the Warfi project. So they have an actual play to earn game, which they are getting revenue from. Doesn't mean that revenue can support the overall project, but at least they are getting revenue that's coming in. So that's important. Rewards, touched on this a little bit earlier, but compounding needs to be real money. So EMP finance, EMP money, they allow you to compound, which is fine, right? But you're compounding a pretend reward, right? So if you aren't familiar with EMP money, basically they have a whole number of applications and um, kind of almost like micro apps out on their system, detonator, reactor, etc. But basically, like with the detonator, if this will load without a wallet, you basically can enter funds in here, and you get a certain 1% I think it is reward for a certain number of days, up to a max percent. But those rewards aren't coming out of anywhere necessarily. They're not they're not some other service that's actually getting money into the system necessarily. And then you can compound infinitely to get infinite number of rewards. So that just feels like it's a scheme to kind of get more money from people without an actual real world project. So infinite growth is a red flag, and then compounding, if it's not in a meaningful way, is a red flag. And then all positive days is just not natural, right? So there is a project out there called Alpha Capital, and they're claiming that they're continually kind of going up. And you look at these numbers, and every single day these are positive. It's not to say that's impossible, but think about you know large investment firms and people investing in the stock market or investing in forex, getting a 1% return every single day is quite unheard of. And I know that they're doing certain techniques like whether you agree with it or not, doing kind of sandwich trading where you kind of sneak in there and pump up the price and then sell that back to an individual. That might be a way to get those returns, but it seems like it's not sustainable. And then further on this project in specific, the person running it is not only not doxing themselves, but I've seen on some AMAs that they seem to be using a voice modulator potentially. So that, again, super, super big red flag. Need to watch out for that. So just kind of be aware of what your rewards are and if they're realistic or not. And then finally, verification. So depending on your skill set, you can look at code and or transactions. So you can always, jump onto a BSC scan or similar kind of project where you can look at transactions that are happening and just see what's in the ecosystem. And you don't have to be a programmer to do this, right? You can look and see, okay, people withdrawing, depositing, click on here and see, how much is it that they're working with. You can go up here and you can find out how many tokens are in this particular contract. If the contract is verified, you can actually run some of the methods here, right, to kind of get an idea of like total supply and things like that. So you can poke around without actually having to look at the code here. So that's really important to kind of verify. And if you're not super familiar with that, you can always hop onto some of our videos. We actually walk through code and try to explain it in a simplistic fashion. And kind of just doing your research that way. You can also verify in some cases projects have other third parties. Like Horde at one point was using a Doom graph here, which shows a whole bunch of information. But like for example, here you can see the inflow versus outflow of funds and then the balance. And over here, it's starting to tank, right? So this could be a sign that, hey, I need to get my money out because it's kind of going down to zero. I want to get out before everybody else, takes all the money out of the system. So you can find some of those things on Discord for the projects. So definitely to keep an eye out for that. Another verification is making sure that somebody has a wallet with multi-sig. So Gnosis Safe is one example. So if you see that they're using that, you can actually verify that they have a certain number of signatories. You can verify the treasury, just like how I mentioned before, either through the project itself, or through, I suppose, the BSC scan. So definitely try to verify that they have the funds they say they do. And then finally, the community. Does the project, whoops, does the project offer a DAO, so a mechanism for the users to vote? If so, it's great. You have more control over the system. Are they active on Discord and Twitter, so giving regular updates, or are they just kind of behind the scenes? One thing about yield nodes originally was that they weren't on Discord. You really couldn't interact with the sorry, you really couldn't interact with anybody on the project. Now they are, and they've kind of adjusted that. And also, kind of making sure that the AMAs are run and that the people running the project are transparent. So get in there, ask some really good questions. You can watch, some influencer videos. I would say just be careful with those because most of them are paid. So you can basically get a paid. You have to be on, pay some of the bigger name influencers to actually get on their channel. So it's like a big marketing kind of mechanism. So they might be overly positive, to a project. So just kind of watch out for that. So in summary, do your own research, right? So these are just, sorry, these are just kind of examples of things you should look out for and things you should be kind of aware of. But definitely do your own research. Don't just trust what somebody else says. Make sure you feel comfortable with it. And as always, only invest what you're willing to lose. So if you think that it's okay that all this money goes away in some kind of black swan event, then you should be more comfortable investing. If it's something you really need to survive, then definitely don't invest it. And again, that's not financial advice. This is just education of what I personally do and what our project does when we look at investing in another project. So credits, the design of this was made by Slides Go and by Icon and FreePick. So definitely take a look at those projects if you're interested.